book discussion, East of Eden by John Steinbeck, my favorite John Steinbeck novel. It's tight between this one and the Grapes of Wrath, but I think this one has a little bit more general philosophy in it, and that's why I like it. So let me talk about three fundamental things that I want to point out. One is good and evil. This novel makes allusions to the Bible, so it's fundamentally about good and evil, which I think is the main story of the human condition. And I think while reading this novel, I also thought about this. I think we in the Western world, we're a little bit hijacked by the concepts of good and evil because we resonate so well with the Bible. I mean, the Bible, or whether it's the Judean-Christian tradition, the Western tradition, I think you could even include the Islamic tradition here. The concept of good and evil is paramount. It's what really defines almost every narrative that captures our imagination. I think most novels, most interesting, most notable novels of the Western world, going all the way back to the beginnings of the English novel, maybe in the 1500s, and even before that, the Greeks, which of course predates the Bible. But I think good and evil has been capturing our imagination for at least since the Bible, if not before. And I think the Bible also, sort of concisely puts many oral stories that have been talked about for millennia before that into a book. So I think that's really important. I think the next thing I want to talk about is the concept of logos. And I think the character Li, the Chinese servant, who is the concept of logos, so the actual logic part of humanity. So we have good and evil, which is portrayed with several characters, Kaleb and Aaron, Kate, their mother, Adam, their father. All of these characters are circling around the same concept of good and evil. And then you have Li, which is logos, and the role that plays. I think money plays a role. I want to talk about that. Money as the concept of resources, the concept of potential. So there is certainly talk about the idea of having choice as a human, and then money allows that choice to actually manifest itself. And I think Steinbeck is somewhat generous with that concept. In other words, it just sort of flows in your lap and you can just keep doing what you really choose to do. And I think there's a quote by Li, which is interesting, which is something I'm paraphrasing, that money is made with sin and then floats to the good. I think lastly, I want to also talk about the idea of creating your own narrative in your life. And I think that's very tightly related to good and evil. So you can have your narrative, which is usually attached to the good, which is, I want to be good, I want to be pure, I want to do the right thing. And then you fail doing that because nature doesn't allow you to do it. Nature requires adaptation. And I think the way the Bible depicts it is that we're all descendants of Cain, which is the evil. And therefore we are eternally embedded in sin, and that's why we need salvation. But I think in East of Eden, this goes further. And there's this concept, and that comes from Logos, from Li, you have the choice. You have the choice, and it's not even a concept of money. It's a concept of your own imagination. I think this, to me, is the most powerful idea of the book, and I directly relate it to the beginning of Infinity. It's the human is the only species in the universe, or at least the only animal in our knowable universe of living creatures that has a choice. It's not predetermined and it's not random. We have a choice. And it's not even a concept of resources. And we don't have excuses. And I think that's very clear in this novel. This is not in our podcast. It's December 15, 2024. This is Crimdelco. This is a Sunday. There's no update for the year. We're up 101.9%. The market is up 26.4%. We're outperforming by 75.5%. So East of Eden by John Steinbeck. makes allusions to the Bible. I think the first thing I want to talk about is good and evil. I think this is the main topic of the book. It is a modern adaptation of the Bible, so really it's very, very strongly related to good and evil, to sin, to the inverse of sin, which is doing good. And there's a couple of characters in the book that depict that. There is Aaron and Kaleb, the two brothers. Kaleb is Cain and Aaron is Abel. We also have a story before that, which is the father of Cal, which is Kaleb, and Aaron, and that's Adam. He's the innocent, the good one, and then his brother is Charles. He's not so good. And it goes all the way back to their father, which has a questionable story. But I think before I go into more details about characters, I just want to sort of in general talk about the good and the evil here. And what does it actually mean to do good and evil? Well, one easy definition is it just follows the Bible, right? So, and we're very influenced in Western literature and culture by the Bible. So what good and evil is simply what it says over there. And I think but that's just the beginning, right? I think it's one of those things that you see, you know it when you see it. That's the thing. You know, let's say Kate is evil. Kate is pure evil. Actually, it's depicted in the book like that. She is described like that. There's nothing good about her. And in the end, she takes her own life. So she is mean enough to do that, but she does it in a way to hurt everybody else. And the reason she does it is because she can't hold the pain anymore. Literally, she has physical pain, but I think it's more than that. And to me, it's probably a sign of a message that Steinbeck is sending here, because nobody in the book, there's a lot of people who try to conquer Kate, to try to trick her, to try to put her in her place. Nobody can do that. Everybody fails. The only person that puts her in her own place is herself. And in the end, she kills herself through punishment because she can't take the pain anymore. So I guess the point being that we know that she is evil. That's what I'm trying to say here. And I think, like a good novelist, Steinbeck doesn't judge. He lets the reader judge. So it's very much in the tradition of, let's say, Cormac McCarthy, who very famously said in one of his last interviews before he died, when he spoke about The Passenger, his latest book, that he has no opinion about that. It's the characters who express their opinion. And I think the same here. I don't know what John Steinbeck's actual view was on good and evil and all of these things, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter what the author is thinking. What matters is what we're taking from the book. And of course, we believe that there is such thing as good and evil. And then I think the character of Kaleb actually shows that there is probably, it's not as black and white. Kaleb is mean, he does bad things, but he's trying, he's working really hard towards being a better person. But in the end, he can't. He kills his brother, not directly, but indirectly, and he takes his woman. So he does all the bad things that a typical Cain and Abel story would show. Again, the question of what is good and evil is, on the one hand, we have an easy answer to that. On the other hand, it's a much more difficult answer, which is, okay, what is the actual ground truth here? Like, let's say, for example, we could be instrumentalists. We could just say, look, good is just the thing that gets you further in life. But it doesn't work like that, because Kate got very far in life. She got rich, she got successful, she still is in pain. Adam is good, he's in pain too. Aaron's good, he's in pain. Kaleb is mean, everybody's in pain. So is life just suffering? And I believe it isn't. So I take, this is now me, I take from this book that we just cannot be black and white in life, and that good and evil are just, it's kind of like the efficient market hypothesis in finance. Sorry for the digression, but I just want, there is no such thing as efficient market. There's no such thing as perfect markets. There's no such thing as an equilibrium in markets. There's no such thing as the perfect gas. There's no such thing. Yes, there is the, preservation of momentum, preservation of this, preservation of that in physics. And we will never be able to approach these things. We will probably never be able to measure the Planck constant to the 150th decimal or whatever. But it doesn't really matter for us. It's sort of like we have these ideals in life, and then we have practical life, and those things are not the same thing. Nature doesn't require us to be perfect and pure. It's our minds that require us. And I think this brings us to the second thing, really, really important, which is that word. It's a Hebrew word. I can't pronounce it, something timshu or something like that. But it's the concept of you may. You have the choice. And I think this is very, very important for me personally, because it relates to one of my favorite books, which is The Beginning of Infinity. And the concept is the same, which is we are the only animal that has the choice to believe in something that it is either true or not true. And it doesn't really matter. We have the power to decide what we believe in and what we do. We have the power to be at a junction and decide to go either left or right. My cat doesn't have that option. My cat functions based on impulse. My cat functions based on what she needs to do to survive, like every other animal. But we have that choice. We have that choice to create our own reality. We have that choice to create our own real reality in terms of technology. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think in this book, it's not so clear whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. Steinbeck leaves it open. He's also writing a story in the 1950s when this novel was published, where maybe the idea of technology has been conceptualized a little bit differently. We just had Hiroshima, we had science showing us how dangerous humans can be. So I don't want to go further into that, because I don't think East of Eden is about the danger of technology or anything like that, but I just want to mention the power of your own story. And I think what is being depicted in the book is the danger when you live. Like Abra's quote about Aaron is, he lives in his own story and he cannot accept reality. And that's why he breaks up with Abra. He wants to be a priest, but even being a priest is not pure enough for him. So he goes to war and gets killed. So I think this ability to choose is a wonderful thing, but it's also a dangerous path. Because if we strive for total purity, we will end up in, we will destroy ourselves. So I think this to me is very important. Last thing I want to talk about is money, actually. And why am I talking about money? Well, because I think it's a little bit more important than, it's not just a sideshow. There is this really convenient concept in East of Eden where every now and then, lots and lots of money fall into the laps of people, and they usually fall in the laps of the good ones. And there's a quote by Lee, which I find interesting, which is that it looks like money is made by the mean and the sinful, and then it floats to the good ones. That's an interesting idea. And I think Steinbeck leaves that open again. It's my interpretation. It's in the eye of the beholder, which is, it looks like, the really mean ones, Will Hamilton, another character, a hustler, a businessman, a no-nonsense type. Cal, clearly, the antidote to good in terms of, he says himself, I'm mean and I want to do good, but I can't. But then he makes a lot of money. And then he wants to donate all that money to his father. The father says no, and then he burns the money. So there's this idea of money, and I think I want to maybe detach a little bit from the novel and just say that, look, I think what Steinbeck is either, what I get from this novel, whether Steinbeck wants to say that or not, I don't know, is that, look, you can be as pure as you want, you can have your identity, you can have all these beautiful things, but you need to have resources to do that. And without resources, your ideas are literally not very interesting. On the other hand, the resources themselves don't help you much either. So you need to have, and that gets back to Logos, and this is certainly Lee's character in the book. You need to have, and I guess this is also already part of the conclusion now, I would say that the beauty of this book is that we have two characters here, which is Adam and Lee. We have Logos and we have the good. The good and Logos together are the most powerful forces in the universe. And they prevail. And the mean, the sin, the no-nonsense business types, all these short-sighted, myopic, a lack of thinking types of people, they are short-term spikes, but the long-term is always logos and good. And I think that's the way I interpret this novel. It's a positive novel, like every novel that Steinbeck wrote, as devastating as the stories can be. Like Grapes of Wrath is a devastating story, but there's always hope there. That's why I like him. He has hope, and maybe it has to do with the fact that he grew up in my opinion, the most beautiful place in the world, which is the Salinas Valley and Monterey County, with Monterey and Carmel attached to it. When you live in a place like that, I think you always have to be hopeful. It's a prolific nature is prolific there. It's beautiful. It's lush. Both under the water, in the ocean is the most prolific life on Earth is in that ocean, and also, of course, the Salinas Valley as you know, fruitful, and lots of stuff grows there all year round. We all know that living in California, we always have access to good food, things along those lines. So there's this hopeful message that I take from the book, which is that we can get beyond good and evil. We can even get beyond logos. I think the beauty is in the combination of those things. Lee alone is a lost soul. Aaron alone is a lost soul. And Cal is a lost soul. And Adam is a lost soul. But together they're a very powerful soul. And together they are what we call the human condition. Thank you.